Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer worried about rent, bills, or whether your car will decline at the grocery store. Imagine knowing that no matter what happens tomorrow, you are financially free. Not because you won the lottery, but because of a few simple habits you built over time. My story isn't about overnight success. It's about the daily choices, the tiny changes, and the mindset shifts that quietly transformed my bank account from barely surviving to thriving beyond anything I ever imagined. In this video, I'm going to take you inside my journey, the exact millionaire habits that turned my financial life around forever. By the end, you won't just know what they are, you'll feel empowered to make them part of your own life starting today. But here's the deal, watching alone won't change your future. Action will. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and let's dive in. Because the sooner you start, the sooner your life can change too. For most of my 20s, my financial life was a mess, and I don't say that lightly. I was working hard, sometimes holding down 2 jobs, yet my bank account told a completely different story. My paychecks seemed to disappear the moment they arrived. Rent, car payments, groceries, and a long list of little, just this once purchases left me with nothing to show for all the hours I worked. I had convinced myself that the problem was my income. If I could just make more, I thought, everything would magically fall into place. But the truth hit me hard one rainy evening when I checked my account balance after a week of overtime, and I still had less than $50 to last me until payday. The deeper issue wasn't just money, it was my habits. I had no real system for saving, no discipline with spending, and no plan for my future. I'd tell myself I'd start budgeting next month, but next month always came with some new urgent expense, a birthday gift, a quick weekend trip, a dinner I couldn't say no to. And then there was my mindset. I didn't see myself as someone who could ever be truly wealthy. I believed people who became millionaires were either born into it or got lucky. I didn't know it then, but that belief alone was keeping me stuck. Looking back, this was the turning point. Not the moment I became a millionaire, but the moment I realized that if I didn't change the way I thought about and handled money, nothing else would matter. My turning point didn't happen in some glamorous, movie-worthy moment. It happened in the most ordinary place, my car parked in front of a grocery store with a half-written shopping list on my lap. I had just checked my bank account again, and the number staring back at me was so low it made my stomach twist. I had bills due, gas to buy, and a fridge that was almost empty. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, feeling this deep mix of embarrassment and exhaustion. And then, for some reason, I thought about a conversation I'd overheard at work weeks earlier. A coworker was talking about how he was investing a portion of his paycheck every month, not just saving, but actually making his money grow. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself, that's for people who already have extra money. But now, sitting in my car, I realized something. Waiting until I had extra money was exactly why I never had any. I kept thinking I'd save and invest later, but later never came. That night, I went home and started reading everything I could about personal finance. I stayed up past midnight watching videos, listening to podcasts, and jotting down notes. I came across stories of people who had started with nothing, but through discipline and small daily habits, had built real wealth. One story in particular stuck with me. A man who saved just 10% of every paycheck, no matter how small, and invested it. It didn't make him rich overnight, but it made him financially free years earlier than most people. Something clicked. It wasn't about a huge salary or a sudden windfall. It was about consistency. It was about making money work for me instead of me working for money forever. That night, I made myself a promise. I was going to learn, apply, and stick to the habits that could turn my financial life around, no matter how small the changes seemed at first. Once I made that promise to myself, everything started to shift. Not overnight, but in small, almost invisible steps that over time changed the entire trajectory of my life. The first habit I built was paying myself first. Every payday, before rent, before groceries, before anything else, I transferred 10% of my income into a separate account I nicknamed Freedom Fund. At first, it felt uncomfortable. That money could have covered so many immediate needs, but I treated it like a bill I owed my future self, a non-negotiable. The second habit was tracking every single expense. I carried a small notebook, and yes, I wrote down even the $2 coffee or the $5 snack. It was humbling to see how many small, mindless purchases were eating into my goals. Slowly, I began redirecting that money toward things that actually mattered. Then came the third habit, learning to invest. I started with the basics, index funds, and a simple brokerage account. I didn't know everything, and I didn't pretend to. I just started small, with the little I could spare. Watching that account grow, even by a few dollars, gave me a kind of motivation I'd never felt before. I also made a radical change to my mindset. I stopped chasing lifestyle upgrades just because I was earning a bit more. No new car. No, just because shopping sprees. I learned to delay gratification, to find joy in the progress instead of in possessions. Over time, those small habits compounded. My freedom fund crossed $1,000, then $5,000, then $10,000. My investments began generating returns that felt almost unreal. Money making more money while I slept. But the real transformation wasn't just in my bank account. It was in my sense of control. I no longer felt like life was happening to me. I was actively shaping my future. I started dreaming bigger, about owning a home, starting a business, retiring early. Dreams that once felt like fantasies now felt like plans. And the most surprising part? Friends and family started noticing. They'd ask how I always seemed so calm about money, how I never seemed broke anymore, even when my income hadn't doubled. I realized then, wealth isn't just about the amount of money you have. It's about the habits, the discipline, and the mindset you build along the way. Just when I thought I had finally cracked the code to financial peace, life reminded me it doesn't follow our carefully written plans. It started with a phone call on a rainy Tuesday morning. My mother's voice was trembling on the other end. My father had been rushed to the hospital. It was serious, and the bills were already piling up. Without hesitation, I told her not to worry about the cost. After all, I had my freedom fund, and this was exactly the kind of emergency it was meant for. But 1 week turned into 2. The medical expenses grew faster than I could replenish them. Between hospital stays, specialist visits, and medication, my savings drained like water through open fingers. Then, as if the universe wanted to test my limits, my company announced layoffs. My role was no longer essential. Just like that, my steady paycheck, the lifeline for all my plans, vanished. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my budget notebook. The neat columns and rows of numbers I had worked so hard to build were now a battlefield of red ink. I had enough to cover the basics for a few months, but the fear was heavy, that familiar, suffocating fear I thought I'd left behind. For a moment, I was tempted to give in to panic. All the progress, all the discipline, felt like it had been for nothing. I wondered if I'd have to start from scratch, if my dreams had just been ripped away. But then, I reminded myself, I had been here before. The difference now was that I wasn't the same person. I had knowledge, skills, and habits that couldn't be erased by a layoff or a hospital bill. The real question was, how was I going to use them to climb out again? I didn't climb out of that storm overnight. It took months of swallowing my pride, cutting back to the absolute essentials, and saying no to things I once thought I couldn't live without. I picked up freelance work, sold items I didn't need, and leaned into every skill I had built over the years. The truth? My millionaire habits didn't just help me grow wealth when life was easy. They saved me when life was brutal. One habit in particular became my anchor, tracking every single dollar. In the chaos of medical bills and no steady income, knowing exactly where my money was going gave me a sense of control. Another was maintaining multiple income streams. Even if they were small at first, they eventually became the bridge between survival and stability. And slowly, the tide began to turn. I rebuilt my freedom fund. I landed a new role that paid better than my last. The fear in my chest loosened, replaced by a quiet confidence. Not because I knew life would be perfect, but because I now trusted myself to adapt, no matter what came. Looking back, I realized the real millionaire habit isn't about the money at all. It's about resilience. It's about building a life where setbacks can shake you, but they can't destroy you. So here's my challenge to you. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start. Begin today. Create your own version of these habits. Track your spending, save before you spend, invest even small amounts, and keep learning. Because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is right now. And if you found even one insight in my journey that spoke to you, hit that like button so more people can find this message. Subscribe for more real-life stories that inspire action, not just inspiration. And remember, your financial freedom isn't built in a single leap. It's built in the small, consistent steps you take every day.